Hello, you lovely lot, and welcome back to Sabbatical Stories, Season 4. Can you believe it? I am coming to you today from Hai Phong in Vietnam, so please excuse the scooters in the background beeping and the hustle and bustle of busy Vietnamese streets. What started as a passion project and a bit of a school reunion collaboration has grown into something so many of you have binged, shared and loved, and we honestly never imagined this when we first hit record. The real credit goes to our incredible guests. Every person who's joined the show has shared their messy middle, the brave decisions, doubts, detours and unexpected turns, and it's really that openness, I think, that makes the podcast what it is. We're kicking off Season 4 with an absolute pocket rocket. Sophia Mikelionis, a former high-performing finance leader, now helps women lead with clarity, capacity and sustainable power. After years of being celebrated for performance, a shift in industry and culture left her burnt out. So taking a career break wasn't really about losing ambition, but it was more a strategic leadership decision to rebuild her energy and redefine success really on her own terms. We talk about burnout, guilt, hustle culture and identity, plus the small but powerful habits that rebuild capacity, and you will love putting your phone to bed tip. It's amazing. She treats her phone like a child or a dog. It's brilliant. We also explore returning from a sabbatical, setting boundaries and leading with presence over pure productivity. If you're navigating burnout, a type A personality, considering a career change, or simply just want practical habits to enhance your life, this one is a cracker. Let's dive in. I think you'll love it.
Deep down, you've tried dig deep, search wide, enjoy your climb. It's all for you.
Welcome, Sophia, to Sabbatical Stories. It's so wonderful to have you here.
Hello, hello.
I always ask everybody to introduce themselves because who better to do it? So could you please give our audience a bit of an intro to Sophia and your sabbatical story, please?
Sure. So I'm Sophia. I'm a leadership coach, speaker, and I created the Liberated Leader Experience. I work with high-achieving women, especially Black women or women of color, and I help them reclaim their energy, their boundaries, and find their voice in environments that often reward over-functioning and under-recognition. And we do that through the lens of self-leadership, because when you lead yourself differently, everything else around you shifts. That's what I do. But my sabbatical story, man, I wish it was fancy. Let me tell you, I enjoyed working in finance, and I have a pretty bubbly personality, so it was easy for me to climb the ranks. All the companies I worked at were so fun. One was a candy company and one was a cereal company. So it's easy to deliver bad news when you're doing it over a bowl of cereal, but
over your cornflakes.
Yes, exactly. I had the brilliant idea to push myself and to try a job in a different industry. And that is where I burned out. Let me tell you, it was day 2 of this job and I knew it was a mistake.
Wow.
The culture, the work culture was completely misaligned to everything that I had been doing. Everyone was eating lunch at their desk, or when they would order lunches for us, there was no, hey, let's break away and everyone take a break for 10 minutes. It was work yourself to the grind. And if you get up, if you cry uncle, we're going to make you kind of feel bad about that, because that's not the norm. Working late nights, it was really hard, because as a Black woman, bragging about these roles, that's like my currency. And when I talk on the phone to my parents, oh, tell me about this fancy job. Or even when I talk to my friends, I get to brag about my fancy job. And somehow who I am just became my title. And
yeah, of course,
I had to work through that. But it was, long story short, it was misaligned. I talked to leadership. They said, hey, we agree, but maybe you should take a quiet sabbatical. Let's not tell anybody about it. So I stepped away, and my coworkers started pinging me hey, what would you do in this meeting with Bill? How would you, present this to Caitlin? And I led with, hey, take care of yourself first. Did you take a lunch today? When you're hangry, you don't present as well. Or maybe you've been staring at this too long, take a beat. So those tiny habits are kind of what I help people do. And that's what I do now. But the sabbatical, coming to that sabbatical and stepping off the gas was so hard to do. And I just want more people to know that it's okay to outgrow a version of yourself that you work so hard to become.
Do you think it was the industry that was misaligned, or specifically the culture?
Ooh. I think it was the culture, because when I left those fun companies, I could see, earnings report after earnings report. It was the constant need to outprove ourselves or outgrow ourselves or beat that revenue target. So I could see the writing on the wall. And I feel like, honestly, it's the culture of the world that we live in. So before, when I first graduated from college, it's one thing to come in early and to look at your email and to prepare. But now that we have these devices, these beautiful smartphones that can go with us wherever, we are incentivized to always be on. It's a holiday, and guess what? I got to check my email really quick, or let me catch up on work and send all these emails at 10 p.m. so that way I look good to senior leadership. So I think it's just the culture in the world that we live in, to be honest.
It's the irony, isn't it, that I think somebody said to me this year that whenever the iPhone was being created, it was sold to us that it would, give you more freedom. You could listen to music wherever you went. You would be able to, record on it. You'd be able to keep in touch with people. But actually, it's done absolutely the opposite, because we now have work in our pocket wherever we go. And it almost becomes addictive and expected. And that whole immediate response loop that we have got into as a culture has also, I think, impacted on friendship circles and family circles as well as work, because I know that there are certain people in my circle that expect an immediate response, and I almost dig my heels in now. I'm a bit like, no, you're not getting one, because actually, why should we be at everybody else's beck and call when, let's, as you say, look after yourself first and methodically then work through things? You mentioned that you were encouraged to take a sabbatical, and quietly.
Yeah, so it was a quiet ask because of the optics. I was at a pretty high level in the company, and they had hired me during COVID. So in the States, that's when everyone was having a reckoning. We need more people of color in these positions. And leadership felt like, hey, maybe we hired the right person, but maybe not for the right position. And we want to save our own skin. We want to preserve our optics or how we look by not necessarily admitting it. So the hope was that I could just, step away for maybe a week or 2 weeks and unplug and figure things out. It's so funny because that company did have a true sabbatical program.
Okay.
But when they handed me the paperwork, I was already at my limit. When I saw the first line and it said name, I threw a tantrum like a 3-year-old. I was like, what do you mean my name? You know who I am.
You know my name.
You know I need a break. Get out of here, So I think that's why they realized, okay, clearly she's at her limits. Let's just give it some space and we'll figure it out. And I really think that was a blessing in disguise, because if I had done the whole walk away, hi, everyone, I'm moving on to other opportunities, people wouldn't have pinged me on the side. And then I wouldn't have realized that I have the superpower. I have the insight to help other people see that this isn't the route. You're going to burn out.
Yeah.
And what's funny? Like when I told my friends that I was taking a sabbatical or walking away, they said, what took you so long? And I was like, wow.
So they saw the writing on the wall before you did?
Yeah.
Wow.
And Bex, I had all of the biological symptoms, like the voluntary eye twitch. I would get that before I was driving into the office. I would wake up in hives. I couldn't sleep because I was thinking through all the emails and the things that I needed to do. So this was a high visibility role. It was high pressure. The C-suite, so, the CFO, CEO, those were like my customers. So I wanted to be, it's so funny. We used to joke that we were like their secretarial staff, because like we were at their beck and call. And that's what created all the pressure, not only from them, but from myself, and what, how I wanted to be right in every situation, how I wanted to save the day in every situation, how I had to be the hero. And it was exhausting.
So how long did you take off?
Okay, so it started as 2 weeks. And then after the 2 weeks, I was like, I'm done. So then I left. I think I got paid out for maybe, I don't know, a month or so, but I was gone. I was done.
So the encouragement was a couple of weeks to take a break and recover from burnout, because it only takes 2 weeks to recover from burnout.
Yeah, of course.
And then you come back into exactly the same situation with exactly the same issues. The root cause has not been sorted.
Yeah, yeah. And for me, I realized that it was probably better to leave on a high note than to go back and push through, because I
Yeah.
knew what was waiting for me when I came back. And I knew that I was ill-equipped to handle it at the right level. And that was hard to admit, right? Like if
Mm.
everyone else is pushing you to always be on and I'm always on, what does that do to you? Like, let me tell you, Bex, I was a jerk to my friends. I was rude to my kids. Like, I'm like, what's happening? Who are you? And
Mm.
it was like the reckoning that I needed.
And how long did it take you to have that reckoning? Just those 2 weeks?
No, no, no. I
No.
wish. I wish it was 2 weeks. So it would took me, I'd say when I got to the 6-week part, I was like, okay, this is me trying to find myself. It was me forgiving myself. It was me dealing with the guilt. Because that's the thing. When you walk away, I assumed, and I'm assuming everyone else assumes, you'll feel relief. I'm not responsible for this.
Mm.
But I felt so much guilt because I worked so hard for this position. I felt failure. I felt like I had let everyone down, let alone my family, because they had made so many sacrifices to get me into the good college, to help me get that first internship.
Mm.
There's like no nepotism in my family. It's like blood, sweat, and tears. And then for them to hear you walked away because they made you cry in the car. They're like, did anyone call you like any words out of they call you a derogatory term? Were you impositioned? No. So it's like so hard for them to realize. So going back to it, yeah, 6 weeks to kind of like come out of it. And what I did consistently is kept my morning routine. I still got up at the same time because I didn't want to slide into depression, because I live in the Chicagoland area and all the skies are gray at one point. Sometimes you can feel the sun, but you can't see it. And I knew that would impact me. And then I just kept trying to find my way, going to libraries, trying to, leave these four walls and go to a coffee shop, go visit old friends, just kind of keep it to myself that I was on sabbatical, because until I figured it out, I wasn't confident enough telling other people what I was going through.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I think it's really hard if you don't have the narrative. Looking back, you have the journey, you can put it into words,
Yeah.
you've got that narrative. But when you're in it and really in that thick of that confusion, and as you say, with all of those different emotions, if you can't even articulate it to yourself, how do you share that story?
You can't. It's almost impossible. Like I'm really big on words of affirmation, and every day on my mirror, I was telling myself, Sophia, you are a rock star. Sophia, you are going to figure this out. Sophia, it's a new day. Smile. Sophia, stay activated. So I feel like I had to try to like pour into myself. And you brought up a good point that sometimes you don't have the words, but also it's the safety of being able to deal with the messy bits and the inconsistencies and all of the emotions with trusted people, because that's the thing. Everyone knows the grind. Everyone respects the grind. But when you step out of that, they're like, are you okay? Are you bonkers? Like, have you fallen down the stairs? What's going on?
I think it's also, and we've had so many examples of this laced through the stories that we've shared, around the fact that it's also your story to figure out, and everybody will have an opinion, won't they? And everybody's opinion is different. And do you really want it to influence when you're going through that? Because it sounds to me as though you needed to work it out for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's why I had those words of affirmation to help me with those inconsistent times. And you know what else I did? I hate to admit this, but I would send myself text messages. I would delay send myself text messages.
Wow, I love this.
To encourage myself, like, hey, it's like around 2 p.m. sometimes you need like a punch of chocolate, or you need more coffee. I would send myself a text message every day at 2 p.m. like, hey, I don't know how the morning shook out, but guess what? We got 5 more hours before the day, like seize the day. You can do this, like just positive things, because I was, I guess, my anchor. I was my safety net. I'm an only child, so it's like, who else really knows me to help me, in my opinion.
I absolutely love that. The audience and all of my friends will know that I write a letter to myself twice a year. So there's a website called Future Me, and it delays the sending of your emails, but it also captures all of your emails, so you can look back on all of the years to all of the letters that you sent yourself. And I send myself one on the 1st of January every year, and then on my birthday. I'm lucky my birthday's in July, so it's that nice halfway through the year.
Yeah,
I really look forward to receiving them, and they're just a bit of a review of the year and kind of what my hopes and dreams are for the next year. But I love that text message idea. I love that. And daily, like short, sharp
Yeah, just
Yeah.
short, sharp, and exactly the timing that I needed.
So through this period of time, what was it you were trying to figure out or look for?
Who am I outside from work, right?
Mm,
Because I put so much of my identity into what I could achieve and what I could deliver and timelines and savings that it's like we've all seen the cycles of just corporate America, right? They will not only like get rid of your project, they will get rid of you. They will do all these layoffs.
mm,
So the question is like at this point for myself, like who am I and where do I want to be? Do I feel like my talents are being used appropriately? Do I feel like my skill set is being used appropriately? Do I feel like I'm getting the right visibility? Is this an optimal use of this one precious life that we have? Like,
mm,
so I guess that's what I was trying to figure out because I felt every day driving into that office that it wasn't a fit and I was fighting against it. And to me, that's what burnout is. It's when your efforts and your energy are misaligned to your values. And
mm.
I followed everyone else's guidance on what my value should be. Hey, when you live with your grandparents, your value is to get a good job, earn a lot of money, and those
Yeah.
little self-sacrifices, that's nothing. You'll be fine. Yeah, you had a granola bar for lunch, but you'll have a nice dinner in 2 or 3 days. So just keep going. It's banana.
What did you do to navigate through finding that and finding what you were outside of that corporate identity?
It's so funny. I'm an extrovert, but I felt like in this instance, I had to be a loner. I had to
Yeah.
stay to myself. I had to get close to myself and to my heart. So I would journal every day. I have a planner and I would just journal how I felt in the morning. I would have maybe like 2 things that I would get done: do the laundry, put on a full face of makeup. I did that every single day.
Did you? The routine though, right? And
Yeah,
knowing what makes you feel good.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So I would do those things. I would journal and then I would just sit in solitude trying to figure out what worked and what didn't work. I would have coffee with friends and it's so funny. Now it sounds like market research, but I was just listening to them and their gripes and what they hated about their jobs and I was making personal notes like whatever I do next, I don't want this to be my narrative. Whatever I do next,
Mm,
I'm looking for more, more happiness, more time freedom. I'm looking for more ways to show up and have a giggle, have a laugh, have a chuckle, and at the same time pour into people. So yeah, so I was putting together kind of like a wish list of things that I don't want and
yeah.
things that I do want, but also the freedom to just deal with the gray. Because as a type A personality, everything is about getting it done on time, right on time. And I think that's why I needed those affirmations, those text messages, because this period of time, those 6 weeks, those 8 weeks, 3 months, like before I truly kind of found my voice and my footing, it was a little tough to navigate.
And when did you know you'd found it?
I knew when I had a call with another friend who was like, look, I got to get out of this job, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just listening to her vent. And as she's venting, I'm giving her like true advice. Like, hey, have you thought about this? I'm encouraging her to pause. And there were just so many aha moments. Like she was saying to me, like, I never thought about it that way. Or I never realized that I had choices in this matter. Or I never thought about even pursuing a hobby, whatever. Our conversations were just so invigorating for not only her, but for myself. I said, you know what? I think this is something I can do. So that's what I do now. I host workshops for women who want to lead themselves differently, but don't know how. So we focus on tiny steps, tiny habits that you can add into your day, into your week. It's not doing more, but it's using your time wisely to energize yourself. Because often when people think about a sabbatical, they think about, hey, you have to quit your job. And I want many women of color to know that, yes, I empathize. Sometimes that is not a luxury that you can afford, but we can find small moments to reclaim our energy, to reclaim our time. And what does that look like? Sometimes that is truly enjoying a cup of tea and allowing yourself to stare off into the distance, right? Instead of always being on go mode. Sometimes that's setting a bedtime for your phone. Guess what, phone? You're going to bed early. And maybe you want to stay up late and you want to do whatever. You want to binge to Netflix. Maybe you want to read a book, but that phone, it's in a drawer somewhere. So it's little things like that really energize me. And I'm like, okay, this is it. Each time I help a woman or I help a team find those ways to come back to themselves, I'm like, I found it. This is it.
And you light up when you talk about it. How did you find those things? Because I have everybody talks about, never take your phone to the bedroom. My phone is always in my bedroom. I'm terrible. It can't be the first thing, or it shouldn't be the first thing you look at when you wake up in the morning. Mine always is. But the thought of that being a thing and it having a bedtime, that is genius, because actually
Yeah.
you then are in control of that and you put it to bed. You're like, nah. And I would totally do it with a kid. I would do it with an animal, I'd shut an animal out and no, it's your
Yeah.
bedtime.
Well, the phone is a monster. Put it away.
The phone is a monster. You're so right. But where did you come up with these little tips and tricks? Like, how did they come to you?
Yeah, so I mentioned that when I started this role, that last role, that I knew day 2 that it was a mistake. But I wasn't going to tell my husband because he was so supportive to help me get the role. And yes, you can do it. Like, I can't quit day 2. And then on top of that, it was the optics. It was, I'm of the mindset that, hey, if you work a job, you work it for at least a year. So that way there's no gap on your resume.
Yeah.
So I was telling myself, like, you have to find a way to make it a year. You have to do that.
How long did you do it for?
A year to the day.
Did you?
Yeah, a year to the day. So that's how I found these little ways, because I was like, I'm going to lose it on these people. Let me take a walk. And I was like, oh, that felt good. Let me reward myself because I did that. And then I came up with this whole reward system because that felt good. And you have to continue to invest in yourself and remind yourself, like, whatever we give the mind, whatever we have in repetition, that's what it expects. And that becomes the norm. So I had to find a way to tell myself, like, hey, it's okay to take these breaks. And these breaks made you feel good. So guess what? We're going to do it again. And we're going to do it again. So I kept finding these little ways. And I think it's the constraint of being in corporate at a 9 to 5 and sitting at a desk. I'm like, what little way can I invest in myself? What little way can I care for myself? That's not self-care. I'm not talking about face masks and spas and massages, but what way can I re-energize so that way I can make it, another 3 hours, another 2 hours, and not explode. So that's how I came up with them, like just trying to find little ways. And I would brain dump what makes me happiest, and then how can I find little nuggets of that happiness throughout the day.
So really it is what you uncovered and lived through. So it's tried and tested and worked for you. And then it's sharing it, sharing that almost sounds like you sharing your gift with the world. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. You talked about optics and perception from external individuals, husband, family. How did they take the news that this is what you were going to do once you'd decided that this was your new identity?
Oh, that's a tough one because, so I told my husband immediately, of course, he knew, but then I didn't tell my extended family, like my mom, my dad, like those, I didn't tell those people until maybe 6 months down the line, and I had it figured out. Yeah. So I kind of faked it a little bit because I was like, I don't need to hear them in my ear. Yeah. I know what they're going to say. You quit that good job because, you couldn't handle the pressure. Like I didn't need that. When I did eventually tell them, they said, good for you. I'm glad that you're moving on to something else. Does it pay? They're focused on those things that are critical to them. And I feel like because I put space in between it, and to your point, like some of those friends who had those high power positions, I put some distance. I didn't see them, every month for coffee because I knew that they would get in my head, or they wouldn't appreciate it, or they wouldn't get it, especially because this whole world is an entrepreneur. It's completely different, right? Like you have to wear every single hat. So that took a while for me to come out and tell them. And then when I did tell my friends, they said, we have to throw a party. What took you so long? And of course I'm like, I don't need a party, please. So they threw me a little party. They got me a cake and everything.
So they ignored you.
Yeah.
Like true friends should.
I'm like, who needs a cake? But then, when you're presented with a cake, who's going to say no to that? So it was received well, I would say.
I think back to the first series where we had Katrina McGee, who is a sabbatical and career break coach, kick us off. And then we also had Juliana, who interestingly was one of Katrina's clients at one point. And they both touched on how important it is to really have your identity figured out. If you are going to change, that much, and you have had this one corporate identity for so long and you're not quite sure what's next, they both touched on how important it is to have it totally figured out in your mind before you share it with everybody. And not everybody. I think Juliana mentioned that there were sort of 3 or 4 key people that she might have mentioned it to and talked it through with. But actually, it was almost like a comms plan, even sort of, personally around who are you going to tell, who in what order, what's the narrative
Yeah.
going to be, because it's
Yeah.
super, it's a transition, isn't it? And I think to your point around parents or grandparents sort of saying, does it pay? That sometimes they want to keep you safe, right?
Yeah.
And in their mind, that's what will keep you safe is, do you have enough money to cover the bills, to cover the mortgage, to keep you safe? And so it's almost their projection onto us, I think, when they sort of, say things like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I love that you brought up like sometimes it's a comms plan, because it reminds me of like when you first start dating someone, right? You're excited about it.
Yes!
You don't want to tell everyone, and you definitely don't want to introduce this special someone to everyone because everyone's going to have an opinion. So you kind of want to wait until you know for a fact that, okay, I enjoy this person's energy. I think they're a good fit. And then you slowly introduce. So yes, I love that.
Yeah. I love that
Analogy.
analogy. I love that analogy. And do you know what? It's so funny because I think it also depends on the person. My dad was a teacher in the school that both my husband and I went to. So obviously my dad knew all of the, pupils and students. And my husband had a checkered school hood. So
Yes.
the introduction and the narrative of it, the sort of first introductions were interesting. So you've hit the nail on the head. I love that analogy. It's hilarious. Fast forward, how long has it been since you, sort of transitioned into this new identity?
But almost 3 years. We're right at the 3-year mark here.
And what have been your biggest challenges?
Not falling into the same corporate behavior vortex. I mentioned before that, when you're an entrepreneur, you have to wear a lot of different hats. You have to be the CEO. You have to do the finances. You need to be the spokesperson. You need to do sales. You need to do marketing. You need to do the advertising. And I have to tell myself, it's okay to pace. It's okay to slow down. It's okay to take Tuesday off, because guess what? Wednesday, you have back-to-back meetings. So being able to slow myself down. And it's tough because I don't have a coworker sitting right on side of me to say, hey, tap me on the shoulder. Hey, Sophia, slow down. So it's now me sending text messages to myself saying, it's
brilliant. You are your coworker.
I am. It's the life of an only child. I don't know. So yeah, it's those things. And it's also like truly not only putting I can put my phone in the drawer, but I got to shut down the computer. I got to walk away. I got to, like doing those things consistently. So that's tough because I'm fighting against 10 years, 15 years of doing things a certain way and always feeling like you need to be on.
Yeah. Conditioning, isn't it? It's conditioning. And that's really hard to unravel all of those stories that we've been told ourselves and fallen into. What has been the best bit around the journey?
The best bit I would say is I have the mental capacity to be present. And I know it sounds silly, right? It's like, what do you mean by that? But we just had a holiday, Thanksgiving in the States. And typically at Thanksgiving, I would be a jerk to everyone. Why isn't the turkey ready on time? What are we doing? Like, who's sitting where? Oh, we don't have name tags this time. But I'm able to be present. Yes, these things aren't done. Yes, the turkey's late, but I brought a book. I'm going to curl up in the corner. I have some tea. I'm going to wait. I'm going to enjoy the holiday music. So being present, like I'm able to indulge in those types of things instead of doubling down on all of my type A items. Because type A, Sophia says, you have to be productive in this moment. So I'm channeling that productivity toward a book or enjoying my coffee, my tea.
What's helped you shift? Like, where's that shift come from?
Oh, you asked all the right questions. So when I was in the thick of it, trying to decide if I need to take a sabbatical or not take a sabbatical, my kids, I wouldn't see my kids. In the morning, I would leave before the sun would come up, and I would return before the sun went down. And I remember seeing them on the weekend and asking my daughter a question. I saw her face. She was so frazzled. And I'm like, what's wrong with you? And I could see the panic in her eyes. Like, mommy, I don't want to disappoint you, or mommy, you're mad again, or something. And I'm like, wait, that's not who I want to be. Maybe that's who I was, Sophia 1.0, but Sophia 2.0. A lot of people want to be mothers. A lot of people want to have families, have people that care for them. So why am I being a jerk to this 4-year-old? Like, what am I doing? So I realized that my family, my nephews, my nieces, my kids, they will emulate, they will grow up to be what they see. And if all they see is me as a Black woman always being frazzled, always being impatient, that's what they're going to become, regardless of all the tools that are around them. So I want to be a good model for them, but also I know all this sounds selfish, but I also want to be a good model for myself. Like, Sophia, you can do it. You can appreciate these gifts that are around you. You can embrace it instead of always being the jerk.
Do you think the type A bit as well comes from the control? So the turkey being ready, the name places, the that to me almost seems around this. It's controlling what you can control. And now actually there's almost a calmness where you don't need to. It will all end up okay. We'll have a lovely time. We don't need the names to make Thanksgiving perfect. We don't need the turkey to arrive exactly the right time. There's almost, I think you mentioned the word surrender earlier, and it is almost this surrendering to, you don't have to be in control of everything.
Yeah, and I think that came from my upbringing, right? Like, I knew that living with my grandparents and my parents, like, I had to beat the odds and I had to go to college and I had to do all these things. And in order to do that, you have to be very disciplined as a student, right? Like, your friends are goofing off and like doing all these things, but my head was in a book. And I think it's that control that then showed up in corporate, that then showed up everywhere else. And I want to give myself permission to take your foot off the gas. Like, at some point, it's okay to lean back, to relax, to let other people just do what they're going to do. Like, it's fine. I have my book. I have my tea. It's fine.
And also they might want to. Yeah, they might want to be the ones that sort the turkey out, or, put napkins in a different way, or, sit people randomly without name tags.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting point around this whole conditioning and how we are conditioned to control and almost have this end goal that we can reach with then this no regret policy. And the control piece almost gives us that, okay, we don't have any regrets. We've got to this end goal, but we lose the whole point, which is to enjoy the journey and actually enjoy getting there. And it's why so many of these stories are around people getting to something, getting to this point and then going, shit, is that it? Like, is that it? What am I without this identity? Or what am I now I've been promoted to director, which has been my career dream forever? Or what am I now I've been made redundant and I don't have this job? So it is, I think, about just enjoying those small moments. And you've mentioned, what you're doing now and the type of people that you're working with. When you are working with these individuals, are they on sabbatical?
They're still working and their goal is to stay in their role.
Okay.
But they want to show up differently so that way they don't burn out. And they know that a sabbatical for financial reasons is not within reach.
Yeah.
So that's why I like to focus on, hey, how do you reclaim your time back in small increments? Because a sabbatical is great, but if you don't have that financial safety or even, the safety of those around you to do that, it isn't an option. So I'm kind of like the step before you really decide, hey, let's go for a sabbatical.
Well, you say that, or the step of them returning, because where we sometimes miss the magic is when we return from these breaks. So we have these beautiful breaks, we then come back. And I think it was Martina in season 2 who mentioned that she was back for 2 weeks and had fallen into exactly the same habits, felt exactly the same to prior going off 7 months before, had this amazing time off, but it almost just seemed like a 2-week holiday, but it was 7 months. I think that's where the magic can be found, is in the integration of these breaks and what we learn and the identity shifts that we go through and experience. But many, many times we fall back into the same habit because the root cause has not been sorted out. It's still there. That underlying why is still there. And so actually the beauty around the work that you do is not only prior to the break, but when they're coming back from the break, how can you keep that alive? What are the small little nuggets of gold, like you said, that they can weave into life post break?
Yeah, no, I like the way you frame that, because also when you're returning, you're kind of returning actually to like the same desk. the same car, the same life, right?
Yeah,
But you have
totally.
changed. And when you are the only one, but when you're the only one that changed and everything else around you hasn't, it is like, it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy that you're going to fall back into it. So yeah, what I would recommend is writing down like all of the things that you enjoyed, everything that made you happy on that sabbatical. Was it going into this coffee shop? Was it, I don't know, visiting a different country? Was it trying different foods? Whatever it is, I would identify those items, right? High level. And then this is me being type A, of course, I would do some branches from it. And then I would try to boil it down to an adjective. Is that adventure? Is it peace of mind? And then from there, I would try to find a small nugget to bring it back to you. So if it's adventure, maybe if you're working from home, maybe you work not from home, but from a coffee shop. Maybe if it's an adventure, maybe you try different meals during lunch, because guess what? You're actually taking lunch. So I would suggest like trying to brainstorm it that way, but also doubling down on who you now are. So that means setting boundaries or creating these non-negotiables. You got to stand 10 toes down in it. Like, I'm blocking off lunch hour. I'm sorry, Bill. Sorry, Caitlin. I'm not available. In fact, I'm no longer green. Like, you kind of have to guard or protect that new piece, the new you found, with even more tenacity and just vigor than anything. Because to your point, that's the sweet spot. And if you don't protect it, you're going to slide right back into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I love that thought of brainstorming different ways that you can almost satisfy that adjective.
Yeah.
That aren't necessarily, taking another 6-month sabbatical, because we can't always be on sabbatical. So it's about how we then lace that through our BAU. When you say that, it takes me back to actually corporate days when we used to have what were they called? Potluck lunches.
Okay.
So everybody would bring a different dish from where they're from, because we were so multicultural in the office. So we would just have these random lunches. But you could, as you say, you could have a different lunch from if you love traveling. 1 week it could be Vietnamese that you have for lunch. The next week it could be Thai. The next week it could be Argentinian. Like, you could lace little things like that through life. I love it. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story, Sophia. It has been absolutely magical to witness. Before we close, I've got some quick fire questions.
Ooh.
The first one is, what do you value now that you didn't pre-break?
Oh, okay, don't laugh. And it is my first cup of coffee in the morning. And before, I was always rushed in fact, I had a timer for the coffee to brew while I was getting dressed and showered. It would be ready to go in my that insulated cup that keeps beverages hot for hours. And then I would just grab it on the way out and go and then sip it in the car. So it was like a utility. I enjoyed coffee, but I never really took the time to enjoy it, right? Now I truly enjoy waiting for it to brew. I romanticize turning on the machine in the morning, waiting for the water to heat, and then, choosing the coffee and like sometimes I do the French press to romanticize it, but that's what I appreciate. And in those moments, I start the day with gratitude. I start the day with just taking a deep breath and appreciating the little things around me instead of appreciating the to-do list and dreading the to-do list.
Have you listened to the episode with Neela?
I haven't yet.
Okay, I will encourage you to listen to Neela, and I will encourage you to check out her work, because she is exactly the same. And it's one of her practices that she encourages us in the Wonder Lab to do, which is something you love, start to think about it and create this romantic vision around it. So mine as well, when I do it, is my cup of coffee, because I love my first cup of coffee. Hers is definitely her cup of coffee, but other people's have been different things. Yeah. Somebody said about a Sunday night where they have clean sheets and they just romanticize about this whole ritual of going to bed, and they put essential oils down and the whole thing is in candles, but it's only the night where they have clean sheets because that's what feels so amazing. And so I love that. But Neela's work you would love, I'm sure. What about something that you valued before your break that you don't value now?
Ooh, title. That fancy title. And it was so hard to break up with it. Okay, like every time I told people the company I work for, or like I could see their eyes would get wide as saucers. Oh my goodness, tell me about it, blah, blah, blah. Like, and I would love that, right? But at what cost?
Yeah.
But I'm just happy to be who I am now, hosting workshops. And guess what?
Yeah.
It's fine if people don't get it. I'm okay with that.
Not everybody's going to.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So the title.
And do you have a read, watch, or listen recommendation for our listeners?
Yes, a book, and it's called Gentle by Courtney Carver. Every word in this book, it gave me permission to slow down without guilt. But she has an ailment that her body is eventually slowing down. It's breaking down. And so she's trying to embrace little moments along the way and to find the beauty of them. Like we talked about, like as a Black woman, I know for a fact I've been conditioned, right? To carry, to push, to overfunction, just to be seen, right? But this book reminded me of like the gentleness. It isn't weakness. It's wisdom. Like I stop asking, how can I do more? And I start asking, how can I feel more like myself in this moment?
Finally, your top 3 tips to anybody thinking about or currently on a career break.
If you're coming back from a sabbatical or a career break, be sure to jot down the things that you love, the things that you absolutely enjoyed. And I mean, be specific. I went to this coffee shop named XYZ on this street, and then work backwards to find adjectives, and then work backwards to find small ways to keep that going. I also want to encourage people to see boundaries, because that's the thing, to create space, you have to create boundaries. And I want you to see a boundary not as a straight line or something that you're defending at all costs, but see it as a circle that you're drawing around the things that you love, the things that you hold nearest and dearest to you. And because you want to protect those things, this is how you show up. Because I think if you reframe it that way, it's easier to say, you know what, I'm actually going to take a lunch today. I know lunch hour is the only time we can meet, but I really need to take this lunch, and then I'll circle back with you later. So things like that. And then I would also say, make space for silence. Those first few weeks of my sabbatical, that silence was definitely, I was just like, what is this? I felt like truly I had to detox, but I felt like I needed to be busy. I needed to do all these things. And I'm sure that's what most people do. As soon as they take a sabbatical, if they choose to do it at home, they're like, let me clean out this closet. Let me donate these items to charity. Let me do this. But then after those projects are done, it's quiet and you're stuck with you, right? So be okay with the silence and let your mind wander. Jot down what you feel, because that is how you get closer to who you are and what truly is important to you.
To really create time and space to have that silence, I think is so important, as you say. So thank you so much for those amazing top tips, and thank you for coming on and sharing your story.
You bet.
If anybody wants to get in touch or find out more about the work you do, Sophia, where best to get in touch?
Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's Gearing Together. Gear like a car gear. I talk about more corporate cliches that we need to unlearn and how to truly weave rest into your day, into your life, so that way you can lead yourself differently.
Brilliant. So we'll put all of that in the show notes and people can go and find you there. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Taking matters into your own hands, you won't believe that you're making headway, and plans.
Thank you so much for listening. It really does mean a lot. A massive thanks to Sophia as well for coming on and sharing her story with such honesty and depth. If you'd like to connect with Sophia, you can find her via the links in the show notes. As always, a massive thanks to Auntie B at the Flaxen, my incredible, patient and talented producer. To Nikki Sweetland, our brilliant creative force behind all things social and visual. And to Joe Cook, whose soulful vocals we're so lucky to feature throughout the podcast. If you loved this episode and know somebody who would also love it, please do send it their way. Share the link, pop it in a group chat, forward it to a friend who's always talked about quitting their job. And also do us a massive favour and hit follow, give the show a rating and leave a quick review. It genuinely does make a huge difference, and it helps more people discover these powerful sabbatical stories. The more we share them, the more we normalise taking brave, intentional breaks. And if you've got a story of your own, or you know somebody who does, please do reach out. We are Sabbatical Stories Podcast on Instagram, or connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm Bex Thomas. Until next time, take care of yourself, keep dreaming big, and remember, your sabbatical story might just be the key to your next chapter.